Welcome to Breaching the Boardroom, the podcast where we dive into the real stories and strategies of today's business leaders. I'm Ashley Sebastian, and for the next 30 minutes, we're here to bring you insights from industry innovators, leaders who've faced big challenges, made bold decisions, and often found unexpected inspiration along the way. Today, we've got a great episode for you about the dark web. We found many don't know what the dark web is, how your information gets there, or what to do once you know your personal or business information has been leaked. I'm joined by three experts, and they are kindly willing to introduce themselves.
I'm David Mauro, Vice President of Business Development at NetGain. We're a top-ranked MSSP, as well as a premier managed IT company that's been around since 1984. I'm also a proud member of InfraGard, which is the public-private coalition nonprofit in conjunction with the FBI and the public sector to help protect the United States critical infrastructure. I'm excited to be joined by two gentlemen today who work with helping small and mid-sized businesses transfer and reduce risk. And today, you're also going to get exclusive insight into what actually happens once a data breach attack occurs and best practices of reducing that risk. With that, I'm going to turn it over to John. John, go ahead.
Thanks, David. My name is John Spiehs. I am the head of claims at Converge. Converge is an InsurTech MGA, which is a managing general agent or underwriter. We provide cyber insurance to small businesses. I have roughly 20 years of claims handling experience in the industry, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Nathan Borghardt with Lockton Affinity. I've been at Lockton Affinity for just about 15 years, and we help insure small to medium-sized businesses with focus on cyber insurance. I'm excited to be here.
I'd like to kick off the conversation with you, David, giving everyone an understanding of the internet and the different levels of the web.
So the internet, as we mostly use it, is only 4% of the internet. The vast bulk of it is called the deep web, and that is behind paywalls, right? It's research, academic, medical journals, things like that. Aspects like a university and their deep research. And then there's another section of that, a subsection of that, which is larger than the internet that we all use on a regular basis, and that's the dark web. So it's important to shine a light on the dark web since it shows the modus operandi of cybercrime, what cybercrime and cybercriminals plan to do and how they do it. That's their modus operandi. Without awareness, businesses are really flying blind. So what exactly is the dark web and how is it different than the internet that we all use every day? Think of the internet as a vast library or shopping mall with lots of products and resources. The dark web is a hidden room over in the back. It's accessible only with special keys, or in this case, special software and special tools. And unlike the open web, it's not searchable by Google. You can't get there without the special tools. And instead of like a .com URL, it's going to have a .onion URL, which is for the onion router. And some of those special tools are like the Tor browser, which is the onion router, TOR. User identities are hidden, and a lot of things occur on the dark web. It's a haven for cybercrime. So here on the dark web, illegal goods and services are exchanged in marketplaces just like Amazon. There's also private forums and websites hosted by cybercrime gangs where they sell their malware services, recruit new gang members, provide tools of the trade, etc. So why should we care? I mean, why do business leaders need to know about the dark web or need to care? Can ignoring it kind of put your organization at risk? The answer to that is absolutely yes. Criminal groups operate just like legitimate businesses, selling stolen credentials, violence for hire, even murder for hire, human and drug trafficking, stolen intellectual property, and even offering ransomware as a service. Ransomware as a service is a turnkey platform that are built by these cybercrime gangs, Black Hat, Lockbit, Akira, Ransom Hub, some of the ones you hear about in the media. And these turnkey platforms operate just like Salesforce or HubSpot, except they track extortion campaigns rather than marketing campaigns. Small businesses generally believe in a myth, and the myth is that they're too small to be targeted. And most lack adequate defenses, making them easy targets, or they become collateral damage in larger attack campaigns that are launched through these ransomware as a service and malware as a service platforms. And they have all those vulnerabilities found right there on the dark web. To keep customers' trust and to maintain a competitive edge, leaders really need to know first, is your data on the dark web? And not only now, is it in the future being discussed? Meaning, are they talking about hitting your sector? Are they talking about hitting your type of business in your type of state? Because right there on the dark web, they're talking about that. And monitoring that and checking that allows you to understand the modus operandi so that you can defend yourself. It's the old phrase that the FBI uses, and that is, you can't defend against a foe you don't know, right? So you have to know who it is and what they're going to be attacking with. Having 24/7 eyes on glass, not only for the dark web, but for your devices and for the applications that you use, is absolutely critical.
What are some common misconceptions small and medium-sized businesses have about being targets for cyber attacks, and what should they be aware of?
Yeah.
A lot of small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and a lot of the feedback I get from them is that, hey, I'm too small. These cyber gangs aren't targeting me. What would they want with my data? And the thing that I always have to explain is that they're not targeting you, John, business owner. They're targeting your software or the vulnerabilities in your software or your network. And they're just launching this stuff on a mass scale. So they're not really looking at you as the retail shop on Main Street. They're looking at the Microsoft vulnerability that you haven't patched yet, or they're looking that you're using an outdated system. And that's where they go after. They're not going after you specifically. It is really just a broad attack on vulnerabilities in the system.
Yeah, and it really gets into what a hacker is, right? Because these platforms are so plug and play. When we think of a hacker, or what Hollywood and the media has portrayed hackers as being, is what? What comes to mind? What's the picture in your mind when I say a hacker? We think of a kid in a hoodie, right? Cracking Red Bull, like writing all this complicated code in mom's basement, launching all these sophisticated attacks. That's not real. Like, yeah, they exist, right? We all know one, right? But the point is that they really don't need to be very technical, right? Because these platforms are so user friendly and plug and play that all you have to do is have criminal intent.
Just real quick, David, just to jump off your and Nathan's points, like when I think of the dark web, I think of where novice criminals go to become expert cyber criminals, because you can buy access to compromised networks from an access broker. You can buy login credentials, credit cards, social security numbers, PII, stolen goods, social engineering and phishing kits. I mean, the name and shame sites where we have to go to communicate with these threat actors when ransomware hits, they're out there. The data where they publish is out there. That's just, it's just one of those areas where I've never actually gone myself because I'm too scared, but I've seen it used, and it's a pretty scary place. So.
Yeah.
And to David's point on the kid in the hoodie in the basement, I mean, that's not the case. These are sophisticated businesses. They offer 401k, dental, vision, health insurance, high pay. They have office buildings where people go and report to work every day. I mean, these are actual legitimate businesses in the countries and the areas that they operate in. That was really surprising to me when I got an insight into that a few years ago. But yeah, it's legitimate big business.
What should I do if my Microsoft or Google account notifies me my info is on the dark web?
Great point. You need to work with a security person, because what needs to occur is you need to identify where it's located, like what the compromise is, change the passwords, engage multi-factor authentication, and then rescan. Those are generally top steps.
To that last question, I would say contact your insurance carrier. Submit a claim. They can help you out. They have resources that they can point you to.
And another thing to note is to make sure it's legitimate. Like make sure that 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 notification is actually legitimate.
Yeah, because that is one of the red flags of phishing emails, is that your account has been compromised. If there's a sense of urgency and that Microsoft's going to do something within a short period of time, otherwise something's bad is going to happen, and it evokes emotion in you, it's not legitimate.
If these criminals operate as businesses, why are they not caught and prosecuted?
So the reason is it's not illegal where they operate from. They operate in a part of the world where they operate with impunity. So if they bankrupt a small to mid-sized business in the United States, nothing's going to happen. Less than 3% of cyber criminals are ever prosecuted, despite what we do, right? And if they steal, a fancy word for, like exfiltrate is the word you'll hear us say, but it's a fancy word for steal. If they steal and bankrupt us, right, and they bring millions of dollars to their town and they're able to spend it on their economy, they are high-fived. They are congratulated. They operate with impunity. The only rule that they have is they are not allowed to target any CIS countries, any organizations within the CIS countries. CIS countries, for lack of a better phrase, are the former USSR. Most organizations do not do a lot of the best practices, and criminals, cyber criminals, are inside for a long time. During that time, they will encrypt backups. They will create backdoors, so in case you do come across them and kick them out, they can get right back in. They will also gather up intelligence. If they get inside somebody's email, the first thing they're going to do is go into your sent box and see all of the intellectual property and sensitive information that you've sent out months ago that you forgot that you sent. People keep too much data. They know that. That's one of the things that they'll do. The longer they're in undetected is worse. Think of it like somebody having your wallet and they're using your credit cards for more than 6 months without you knowing it, without you being able to call your credit card and have them cancel it, because that's what occurs. So John, do you want to kind of walk us through some of the ways that they actually get in the first place?
Sure. So the first one, and one of the most common, is the email compromise. So essentially, this is when a threat actor is able to gain unauthorized access to a business email account. And the most common way that this is done is via a phishing email. So essentially what happens is a user will get an email that looks legitimate, and it'll ask them to reset their password, or it'll say, log into your account, and you will enter in your login credentials, and boom, they have them. They'll be able to steal that cookie or that token. So think about the damage that they can do once they're inside your email account. So it depends on whose email account that is, right? But think about 6 months spending in a CFO's account, or an accounts receivable clerk, or the HR director. Like, how much information is in there? And as you mentioned, David, people keep a lot of stuff they don't even remember that they have. So it's always one of my biggest pet peeves is that, the lack of data hygiene that some of, businesses practice, in that they don't delete old data, don't archive old data, and that they don't get rid of data that is outdated, like 6, 8 years old, 10 years sometimes. So what the point of all of this is that the threat actor will be in there and they will try to monetize the data, whatever they can find in there, whether it's PII, which is personally identifiable information, or PHI, it's health information. Can they use that? Invoices, bank account information or banking information, customer information, other email addresses. They'll send out phishing, 6,000 emails to your customers in hopes that they'll click on that link and enter their credentials in. So it just goes on and on and on. So the point is really that they'll get in there and they will use whatever they can find to monetize that data. The second kind of attack here is the DDoS attacks, which is a distributed denial of service attack. Essentially, the threat actor makes a machine or network or resource unavailable to its intended users, usually by overwhelming like a website or something like that, so that people who actually want to go out and use it can't. And eventually, you can start racking up losses there, lost revenues and things like that. Social engineering, this is kind of where people are manipulated into performing actions or divulging information. It can be done email, text, phone, all three, you name it, it can be done. Some of the more common types of social engineering that we see are when someone purports to be an employee and they change payroll information. So then all of a sudden, every 2 weeks, their paycheck goes someplace else. One of the hallmarks of social engineering is that the threat actor will pretend to be somebody who's very important within the organization, like a CEO, CFO, board member, somebody and it's always really urgent, has to be done right now. So please do it and don't ask questions. So what happens is when you have that type of situation, the user is not likely to validate or question those instructions because it's someone who is their superior. So another type of variation on social is an invoice manipulation, where instead of making a payment request internally to send out the insured's funds to pay someone else, the invoice or the insured's own invoices for services that they provide get sent out with altered instructions, or maybe they're fraudulent altogether. And that way, your client will pay the threat actor, the client's out money, and you don't get paid for the services that you provided. So that's really kind of a double whammy. And then finally, the ransomware is the final matter, which is the one that most people really love to hear about. But that's malware that encrypts or locks all files and data on the insured's network, which makes them inaccessible unless you're able to restore from a backup, or you have to pay a ransom to obtain a decryption tool. The decryption tool will then unlock or decrypt all those encrypted files and allow the insured to get back to business. Often now you'll see a second layer of extortion, more often than not, like on top of the encryption. You will see before the ransomware payload is dropped, you will see the threat actor combing around again for weeks, months, days, whatever, finding that most sensitive data and then downloading it or exfiltrating it onto an offsite server. So that way, even if you can restore from backups, they'll say, hey, we took 500 gigabytes or a terabyte of your data, or 8 terabytes, which is in the case we'll talk later. And if you want that to not be published on the dark web, which we've been talking about, you need to pay us a ransom. And then finally, there are a third type of extortion where there's no decryption whatsoever. The threat actor will just go in, steal the data, and then try to extort that way. So really three different kinds of extortion that we see most commonly.
I have a question about the BEC attack portion. How do they get your customers' information to send emails to them looking like it comes from you?
They comb through your email. So they'll find an email to that customer. They'll go back, because again, you don't know what's in your emails. If you don't delete your old sent emails, you can go back and find a customer or an invoice or something that you sent this person to, and you're like, oh, well, there's the controller at that location. I'm going to send them an email. I'm going to alter the invoice, the banking account information, and hope that they don't verify.
Or they may buy the credentials on the dark web, right, which are sold on these marketplaces. A lot of people have got a really good password, but they use it on everything, right? And once that is used on a platform that's been breached, that's for sale on the dark web. They will go and do various tactics called like credential stuffing, password spraying. They will take those credentials and log in as you, which again is another reason to have multi-factor authentication engaged.
I just want to make a comment on the social engineering part. And if you guys have a cyber insurance policy, it might be listed as social engineering. It might be listed as fraudulent instruction. It's under your cybercrime insuring agreement in most cases, but all carriers call it something different. But this is the easiest one in what I've seen to mitigate. If you're transferring funds and you're getting instructions via email or text to transfer those funds, call a verified number to confirm that the instructions are accurate and correct. You can limit about 90% of your financial loss just by making a phone call to a verified number. So it's not really a software that you can buy. It's just a practice that you have to instill into your employees who are in charge of sending those funds.
Well, and it just gets to being vigilant on spotting phishing emails as well. Everybody believes whenever somebody's going to do security awareness training, everybody believes, oh, we know how to spot a phish, but yet we don't, right? Over 80% of all data breaches still come in through social engineering. A vast majority still come in through phishing.
Can you spot a deep fake, David? Like we were discussing earlier, that matter in Hong Kong where their $25 million was sent through a social engineering scheme that included deep fakes.
Correct. So deepfakes are synthetic video, audio, and pictures that are made to impersonate somebody saying and doing things that they did not do. And in the last 6 months, they have become and evolved so much, and they've gotten so good that they are virtually undetectable by the human eye, which is really exciting for creators, right? And there are a lot of legitimate businesses that sell these products because they claim that you can scale your ability. You can hold sales calls, marketing calls, internal customer service calls, and be in multiple locations at the same time, letting AI think and act and appear like you on live video. Except that cyber criminals get a hold of that and they leverage that for social engineering. In the last 6 months, there have been 4 major ones that occurred here in the United States. So here's how they happen, because they've all kind of happened the same way. Imagine getting an email that's a phishing email. It's asking you to release sensitive information. You follow Nathan's advice and you try and reach the CEO, CFO, or the HR person and verify it, but you can't get in touch with them, let's say. So then you receive another email, and it's a calendar invite, and it's a Teams video call or a Zoom meeting, and you get on that call, and on that call is your boss or the HR person or both of them or more, people that you know, people that you may know of, right? They're part of your organization, and they look and sound and think just like them, and you're able to ask all your questions, alleviate all of your concerns, go ahead and release the sensitive information, only to find out later in the day or the next day that that wasn't in fact them. And if we think that's something out of science fiction or the future, that is actually happening today. It has already happened 4 times in the last 6 months, totaling $141 million stolen in the United States. And it's going to be something that we see more often.
Excellent. Thank you guys for joining us. It was great to hear from you all, and I'm sure our listeners have learned so much from today. I know that I did. Be sure to stay tuned for part 2 of the Dark Web and Cybercrime Unmasked, where our experts come back to break down what happens when your data has been leaked and the best ways to avoid a data breach from occurring. And that's a wrap on this episode of Breaching the Boardroom. We hope you're walking away with fresh insights and a new perspective on leadership that you can apply to your own journey. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with other leaders looking for real strategies and inspiring stories. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and keep breaching those boardrooms.